bought my first property, I had heard a few times that overpaying your mortgage is a good thing. So I used to throw any extra pound into my mortgage to reduce my principal. I thought this was a smart thing to do because less debt means less interest paid into that mortgage. And also I become debt-free faster. But after doing the numbers and also sitting down to do some deep analysis on this concept, I've come to see that overpaying your mortgage is usually not the best approach depending on your circumstances, financially, psychologically, and emotionally. If you're watching this and you don't understand what I mean by overpaying your mortgage, let me put it in simple numbers for you to understand. Let's say you buy a house for 300,000 and you have a down payment of 30,000. That means that you are borrowing 270,000 from the bank. Now, if you got an interest rate of about 4.5%, your monthly payment will be about 1,501 a month. Happy days. Let's assume that you borrowed this amount of money for 25 years. The total amount that you would have paid would have been 450k. And the interest you would have paid throughout that 25 years, if all the other numbers remain the same, would have been 180,000. Now, let's assume that you want to reduce the amount you pay in interest on this mortgage. So therefore, you've got extra £500 at your disposal every month and you want to put it into your mortgage. So in this case, you are paying about £2,000 into your mortgage every month. That extra £500 usually goes to knock off your principal, which is the 270,000 that you borrowed from the bank. So now if you pay extra £500 every month, your mortgage will be fully paid off in 15 years and 9 months. Secondly, your total amount that you would have paid at the end of the mortgage period would be 377,000 compared to 450,000 if you paid just 1,501 that was allowed, and the interest you would have saved by doing this £500 extra payment every month would be a total of £73,000. Now the numbers look good, doesn't it? That means that if you have some extra £500 in this scenario, you could save yourself £73,000 and you could pay off your mortgage about 9 years earlier. Great. And this is what everybody has been preaching. Now let's get into the details of the things you need to consider when you want to overpay your mortgage. And you might not think these numbers are as great as they seem. 1. Overpayment penalty charges. So most mortgage products that people get into have a fixed rate for a period of time, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 5 years. There is a penalty to overpay your mortgage beyond a certain amount within that fixed period of time or within a year. Majority of the time, the amount that you are allowed to overpay within a year cannot be more than 10% of the balance. This varies per mortgage product. So you need to check your current mortgage product to see what you are allowed to overpay. So in this case, if the mortgage balance is 270k, within a year, the bank may allow you to pay 27,000 additional to knock off your principal or reduce your principal. So if you pay more than 27,000, there is a penalty, which is a charge that the bank will apply for paying more than was allowed on your product. If you're planning to overpay, just go and double check with your mortgage lender if you don't already know what amount is allowed to overpay before a penalty is applied. Number 2. The second thing to consider is the opportunity cost of that extra £500 that you're putting in your mortgage. The most used example is putting that £500 in the stock market for the same period compared to putting it in your mortgage. Now, it's well known that over a period of time, the average amount that the stock market returns is 7%. This is using past or historical data to determine. We do not know what the future looks like, but let's put some numbers to it and see whether it makes sense to rather put the extra £500 into the stock market or put the extra £500 into the mortgage. The assumption here is that you understand how to invest and know what to put your money in the stock market. Let's assume that you're actually going to get that 7% from the stock market every single year. If you put £500 in the stock market every month for the next 50 years and 9 months, which would have been the same amount of time you would have put the extra £500 into your mortgage, the calculations come out that the value of the 500 you are putting in the stock market at the end of 15 years and 9 months would be 155,000. You can compare this to how much you are saving if you put it in your mortgage. Weighing the two, it seems quite sensible to put the money in the stock market rather than to overpay your mortgage. But I want to draw your attention to this point. That 4.5% interest rate on your mortgage is guaranteed. That 7% that the stock market returns is not guaranteed. It could happen that the stock market will not return even 3% over the period that you are investing. So depending on who you are and how you think about debt, you may think you may be better off getting that 4.5% guaranteed return by paying off your mortgage earlier, rather than hoping and praying that you will be getting 7% in the stock market when we don't know what the future looks like. The third consideration that I looked at when I decided to overpay my mortgage is, what is my total financial situation? Do I have an emergency fund saved up so that if I need money, it wouldn't be that I need the money I put in my mortgage? Do I have way much more money coming in every month that I put in my savings? Is that extra £500 I'm putting in my mortgage all the money I have left to save, and I'm deciding to use that to reduce my mortgage balance? The thing is, when you put money in your mortgage, that's money that's locked. That money cannot be unlocked unless you sell the house or you decide to pull out equity by remortgaging. So if you look at your overall financial personal big picture, and let's say you've got way more money coming in every month, you're putting in extra 500 in your mortgage, but your savings is extra 2,000, then your situation is quite different from someone who's putting extra 500 into their mortgage and that's all the money they have left. Your situation is also quite different if you have savings and other investments, maybe in the stock market, maybe in your cash ISA, maybe in property or other investments. Therefore, that extra 500 is actually not money that affects your financial situation if you decide to put it in your mortgage. So consider your overall big picture. This is very personal to you so that it can help you make the decision of how much money you're going to use to overpay your mortgage. The fourth consideration, and this was very personal to me, is what the bigger plan of that property is. Now, in my situation, I had bought a 1-bedroom flat. My plans were to sell it or to move out and rent it out when I'm starting my own family. So you need to ask yourself, are you planning to stay in this property for the long term? Have you bought it for your family is growing and you have like a 3-bed or 4-bedroom house that you plan to keep and maybe let your children inherit? Is this a property that you have short-term plans for, which is maybe a flat that you plan to sell or rent out when you're moving into your next property? In this case, that can help you decide whether to overpay or not. So if you're planning to overpay your mortgage in a property that you don't have future plans for, it might not make sense for you. I'll give you an example. When I moved out of my property, I decided to sell it. And now I've been trying to sell it for the past 2 years. So my money is locked up in the property. I did the numbers and realized that when you want to rent your property out and change it from a residential mortgage to a buy-to-let mortgage, the down payment needs to be up to 25%. I had initially put just 10% down payment in this property. So I overpaid my mortgage up to 25% so that when I switch it into a buy-to-let mortgage, it was easy for me to do the switch. This is why I decided to overpay my mortgage. And that has played out so well because now I can switch into a buy-to-let mortgage and not have the pain of having to put in more money to get up to 25% down payment before I can get a buy-to-let mortgage. The next point I would consider when I'm thinking of overpaying my mortgage is liquidity. Now, I've already said that when you overpay your mortgage, that money is locked up into the house unless you remortgage again or sell when you need that money. But when you put money into the stock market, as long as the stock market is open, all you have to do is sell your investments if you need that money. Now, emergencies happen and people get in situations where they need a good chunk of money for an investment, for a debt, to help family members at a point in time in their lives. So if you are in need of cash and all your cash is sitting in your house, you are house rich but cash poor. So liquidity is one factor that's worth considering when you decide to overpay your mortgage. That leads me to my next point. Is it better considering an offset mortgage rather than overpaying your mortgage? What is an offset mortgage? An offset mortgage is a type of mortgage where your savings are offset against your mortgage balance, so you pay interest on the difference. How does offset mortgage really works? Let's say your mortgage balance is 270,000 and your savings is 50,000. Instead of paying interest on the 270,000, if you link your savings of 50,000 to your mortgage in an offset mortgage, you pay interest on only 220,000. But you will not be earning interest on the 50,000. Why will people consider offset mortgages? Lower interest paid overall, savings stay accessible, so they are not locked into the house. It's flexible. You can move money in and out. And sometimes the kind of people that usually consider offset mortgages are people who are expecting big bonuses, people who are self-employed, and people who have large cash balances, but they don't want to lock it into their mortgage for now. It's good to be aware that offset mortgage rates are usually slightly higher than the regular mortgage rates. You do not earn interest on your savings, and it's best for people with meaningful cash balances. I found out about offset mortgages when I was remortgaging my house, and Barclays was one of the providers that did it. So maybe if you're thinking of considering this, you can call up your bank and check if they provide offset mortgages, and this could be more helpful for you than overpaying your mortgage. The last thing I'll say to consider are the psychological factors that come into play when deciding to overpay your mortgage or rather invest the money. There are some people who sleep better at night when they are debt-free. And there are other people who sleep better at night when they know that their investments are growing. Depending on who you are and how you think about debt, having a big mortgage balance that you are not killing off quickly could affect you emotionally. So if you're one of those people, it might be best to pay down your mortgage quite quickly. Others as well think of their family. If you have a family that live in your house that you are paying off, they think that they don't want to put their family at risk if they pass on. So it's better for them to quickly pay down their mortgage so that if any emergencies happen, their families are not at risk to pay off the mortgages that they left behind. Some other people are very investing conscious and they would rather use extra monies that they have to invest themselves rather than putting it in a mortgage, especially if they don't plan on living in that house for the long term. They really don't see the reason why that money should be sitting in the mortgage, not working hard for them, but can be working hard for them in other investments. Now the decision is up to you. I've helped you see all the factors to consider when you decide to overpay your mortgage. In conclusion, I'd say that you can actually do both. You just need to find out what works for you and maybe apportion the extra money you have in different percentages towards overpaying your mortgage versus investing. It's been Abigail. If you found this video helpful, give me a follow or subscribe to my channel. Put your thoughts in the comments and let's get the conversation going. Smash that like button and I'll see you on my next video.